Ever thought to yourself, if only I could get into my target customer's head? Here's a way that you can do that using human design and the individual centers. Hey, I'm Elise Cartwright, online business coach and creative strategist, and I have been using human design in my business since 2020 and helping my members integrate it into theirs since 2022. And I'm really here to help creative entrepreneurs grow an online business using human design. So, are you ready to be blown away? Because honestly, what we're going to cover in this video is going to blow your mind in terms of how you can truly understand your audience without knowing a thing about their own human design chart. Are you ready? Let's dive in. So by now, I'm hoping that you already know that each individual center has an overarching theme, and each gate within that center has a very specific gift that someone might have access to, obviously when they're aligned. But did you know that when it comes to creating offers and content, you can use each of the individual gates within the centers to help you connect with your audience on a deeper level and really help you understand their very specific problems and why they've got those problems, and then adding in the lens of your specific offer and how you help them. Here's how we're going to do that. So each center tends to deal with a specific theme that is likely going to align with the topic of your offers. It could also be aligned with the problems that your audience is facing, or any myths that you need to bust, any beliefs that they have. Basically, anything that they've got going on up here that is stopping them from getting the result that they actually desire. So the themes within each center can lead to helping you craft your frequently asked questions or addressing directly myths and beliefs that they have in your sales content. So this is where this really comes into play, is helping you craft content that is very specific to an actual offer based on the different centers and the themes that they have. Here's how that's going to look. Hey, so I wanted to share this image and walk you through all of those different components so that you've got a very clear understanding of how you can use the centers when you are coming up with content that you really want to use to connect with your audience on a deeper level. And believe me, if you approach it this way, you are going to stand out compared to anybody else in your space, because your audience are truly going to believe that you're magical and you can read minds. So I'm just going to walk you through each of these. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to work our way down. I'll pretty much highlight what we're talking about. So we're going to start with the head center. So we are going to explore the shadow side of the gates in the head center. If you are someone who is helping your audience with mindfulness, worries, shiny object syndrome, right? Anything around that type of topic, really around mindfulness is probably the biggest thing. But worry is a big thing, and overthinking, any realm of that, then explore the shadow side of each of those individual gates, and that is going to help you ensure that your frequently asked questions, documents, any of your sales content is going to really speak to the things that they are probably struggling with right now. And then the next one I'm going to talk about is the ajna. So this is where you're going to look at the shadow for each of the gates here. If you're someone who has offers that help with problem solving, financial stuff, any past injustices, anything like that. When you look at the shadow side of each of these individual gates, it'll give you even more insight, but that's a really good starting point. The throat center is next, and when you are someone who is helping people craft communication and self-expression, the throat center is the shadow gates that you want to go and explore, particularly if your audience really are struggling to voice things, stand up for themselves, any of that, although that could be in other areas. But this is a really good starting point, particularly if you're someone who is a content creator and that's what you help people do, create content. The next one that we're going to talk about is the G Center. So the G Center is all about exploring different elements around relationships or self-love, but life purpose and direction is also something that will happen here. Now, this is probably going to be more for if your audience has an open G Center, but if someone has a defined G Center and they're out of alignment, then that is where this is going to come in. But relationships, as in finding the love of your life, if someone has this open, they're always searching for that, versus also if they have it open, their own sense of self-love can also be a problem. But direction and purpose are also caught up in here. And so if someone has it defined, then they could easily not have gone in the direction that they wanted to, or they're struggling with purpose. Next, we're going to talk about the heart center. So this is a big one for pretty much any coach or course creator who is working with someone in the business space, particularly when it comes to self-worth and self-esteem issues, anything to do with pricing, anything like that. This is always going to be the the center with the gates that I would be focusing all of your content around why they feel like they aren't worthy or why they can't increase their rates, right? Like if we think about it, they're not going to think I'm not worthy, or they might, but it might be more around the tangible things like how do I choose my pricing? And that is where you can look at the shadow gates for the heart center. The next one that we're going to go into, we're going to stay on this side. We're going to look at the solar plexus. So here, this is going to be ideal for you if you're someone who helps with dealing with emotions, like big emotions, or emotion regulation, because the solar plexus is all about emotions. So if you're a coach that helps people from that perspective, then this is where I would definitely recommend you focus a lot of your content around just addressing the key individual shadow elements for the gates in the solar plexus. Then we're going to flip over to the spleen. I'm just going to move myself up here. So the spleen is where you might be working with people who are fearful of things, like, and the fear is stopping them from moving forward. Surviving, right? They're stuck in survival mode, or trauma. If they've suffered any trauma, regardless of whether the spleen is open or defined for them, this could be where you can go and have a look at those shadow elements for each of those individual gates. The next one that we're going to chat about is the sacral center. So for a large portion of your audience, they're going to have this defined, but they could be out of alignment. So if you help people with energy management, conception, sexuality, parenting, creativity, spirituality, there's a lot that goes on in the sacral center. That's why it's life force, workforce, energy. So energy management is a big one, regardless of whether someone has this defined or not. It's how do you ensure that you don't burn yourself out, right? That's what that is all about. So lots of gates for you to go and look at from a shadow perspective. And then finally, the root center, and we've already kind of touched on the pressure centers, but it's helpful to understand that if you specialize in helping your audience with procrastination, productivity, work boundaries, anything like that, stress, chaos, that all lives in the root center. So going and having a look at the individual gates and their shadow centers there is going to help you understand more about how you can help your audience. So not only will this help you with your content creation, it's going to help you with your offer creation. So if you haven't explored the shadow sides yet to each of the gates in the centers that have the theme of what you help people with. Wow, that was really long. I apologize. This is going to help you. Honestly, I personally spend a lot of time addressing heart center, shadow centers, gates. I also talk about G center. I'm a business coach, so the heart center and the G center are big areas for business to business coaches to go and have a look at. And then I'll also look at the two pressure centers. Regardless of what it is that you actually do, the two pressure centers are always going to be where people have any of the issues that they experience, and any of the other centers are going to bubble up, particularly the head center. It's probably the biggest one that people are going to struggle with. So you can't go wrong, is basically what I'm saying here. So I'm going to see you in the rest of this video, but make sure you go and do that. And Gene Keys, as in Gene, is where you'll find that information. There is a book, which I highly recommend grabbing if you haven't, but also you can just get that information online. I'll see you in the rest of the video. Okay, so now that we've gone through all the different centers and their different themes, you should now be in a position to really go and create content for your FAQs, content that you can add to your sales pages, and content that you can actually create in your sales emails. And maybe it might help you create content that are bonuses for your offers. So by creating content in this way, using the centers, not only are you creating content for your audience to help them make a decision, you're also connecting with them on a level that most people in your space just won't be doing. So armed with this understanding, the content that you'll create through this lens will not only attract your ideal customer, but it will make them feel like you understand them, because you actually do. So if you enjoyed this series, you're going to love the type specific series that are on my channel too. So based on your type, feel free to just deep dive into all the things. I regularly add new videos to this type specific series every single week. And if you'd like to explore integrating your own human design chart into your business, then I'd love to invite you to check out my human design shop, because there are a ton of toolkits and trainings that you can access immediately. Or feel free to come and join us inside the Cultivate membership. More details below.